Thank you so much for sharing this great information with this morning, and you can take over.
All right, sweet. Hello, Buju. My name's Amber Manitwabi Hubner. I'm a citizen of Esquimalt First Nation, and I'm just really excited to be with you all today and to have this space to kind of share about my trip to Washington, D.C. that I was asked to go on, which I'll explain more about later in the presentation. But here are just some like personal pictures I took that I thought I would throw on the title screen to make it less boring. So the next slide. Okay, so just like a quick get to know Amber. So I'm the assistant teacher at the Munising location. So I live in Munising, Michigan. Here's a couple pictures of things. This is my fiance, Cameron, and then this picture is me at the conference. It was called the White House Tribal Youth Forum. I played basketball at Northern Michigan University. I have a cute puppy, Lupin. I like going to the gym, running, and just hanging out with some of my relatives over here that I was a fellowship in. And this picture in the lower corner is when I had a semester schooling in the Black Hills. So just a quick get to know me. So what did I do? And you might hear my dog barking in the background, so I apologize. But just a quick introduction of what I did in Washington, D.C. It was called the Biden-Harris administration, which hosted the 2023 White House Tribal Youth Forum. So they invited 140 Native American youth from across the country. And there was also 6 indigenous youth from Brazil, Canada, Colombia, Guatemala, Honduras, and Mexico. I felt really excited, grateful that I was invited amongst this community to come. And there was also one more person from Marquette, Roxy Sproul. She was invited too, so that was kind of neat to see her. She's a couple years younger than me, but I know Becky might know Roxy. I don't think she's on the call though. But the purpose was to strengthen the relationship between federal government and tribal nations, including empowering future leaders of Indian country. And the key issues that we talked about, it was an all-day event, and then we talked about climate resilience, mental health, substance use prevention, and then quickly like career development. They were trying to get the youth to want to work in the federal government, which I probably won't talk about today, but I did want to discuss like the 3 main issues. And then in my presentation, I'm gonna have what I learned and then like how it could relate to Head Start, which would be great if like everyone could chime in, because I'm definitely not like I'm not a expert in early ed or Head Start or anything like that. So I thought we could kind of connect the two. So then just kind of talk about the overview, but this is how my presentation will flow. 3 issues, how they relate to Head Start, my major takeaways I got from the trip, and then just resources for all of you. Before I get started, does anyone have any questions? Quickly, no? Okay. All right, so the first topic was protecting our world, a discussion on climate resiliency. So I noticed these 3 topics tend to be talked about a lot, like the information. I took notes on every presentation, so these are kind of the main takeaways that I got from it, or that tribes need to be able to take the lead with the land. If anything, have a seat at the table in these discussions. Basically, the Biden-Harris administration's approach to climate change addresses pollution in every sector. I would say that the atmosphere at the presentation was a little tense because, you know, in politics, you ask them a question and they find every way to talk without answering the question. So they basically, sorry, what? Oh, okay. So the tribal nations wanted to hold the biggest polluters accountable and to stop fossil fuel industry. So when I kind of think about how this relates to Head Start, I don't know if it's talked about in committees, but just like reduce waste, practice sustainability efforts. I know there's like a lot of licensing issues that I don't understand, but I can say personally at the Munising location, we like throw away a lot of like paper cups, paper plates, plastic. Like it's just not very sustainable. And the just a Native American principle or teaching is that seventh generation. So what we're doing now impacts the seventh generation. So I guess again, I'm not an expert in Head Start, but this is just what I've noticed. I don't know if anyone wants to chime in with anything.
Amber, maybe we can just go through your whole presentation first and then come back and have a discussion at the end, if that's okay.
All right, that sounds good. All right. The next topic we addressed was truth, healing, and reconciliation, boarding schools, and the Indian Child Welfare Act. So hopefully everyone here knows what boarding schools were, because they're a very important part of our history. So what are boarding schools? Cultural assimilation, attempted genocide. These schools took Native American children away from their homes, miles away from their homes, and it was all built upon the motto from Richard Pratt, kill the Indian, save the man. So basically it was Richard Pratt was a military man, so these schools are referred to more as institutions. In the United States, there was 405 federally Indian boarding schools with 53 different burial sites. So there's a lot of tension or controversy right now, because even in Canada, where they're finding unmarked graves. So these children were, they died at these schools, and their parents, they just told their parents they ran away, or, it's just like, obviously, like Native American community, we're still healing from this. My grandfather was a residential school survivor. And yes, we say survivor because they were abused emotionally, physically, mentally. So just the questions were, how many kids went to these schools and did not come home? We don't know because of the unmarked sites. So what is the Indian Child Welfare Act? Basically, tribes need to make decisions about placement of Native children. So I took a whole course at Northern on boarding schools and residential schools, so I could talk probably a long time about it, but just how does this relate to Head Start in my mind? I just think like Native children are essential, children are essential, children are precious, and like children are sacred. Like they're the future. That so the things we teach them are really important. That's why I remind myself, like sometimes this job can be kind of hard, and then it's just like, well, we're doing it for the kids, and I know that like this stage in their life is so essential to their like development. So I just try to remember that. And then we talked about switching topics here, building healthy futures, a conversation on mental health and substance prevention. Obviously, mental health is talked about amongst like almost all communities right now. American Indian and Native Americans. I didn't write down any statistics, but they have like the highest prevalency of like suicide in teenagers and young adults. It's just, I just feel like the whole nation's talking about mental health right now, which is obviously so important, and it's becoming so much more normalized. So what did some of like the Native American tribal leaders say? They said we need to spend time healing by being on the land, which I just love. Like going on a walk, it can be so healing, and we have Lake Superior here, so just spending time with her. And then so what can we do? Teaching, training, and education. Educating others is like the first thing we should do for primary prevention. Like education comes first, and then we're going to worry about what happens if there is an issue. Something I like that I wrote in my notes was that no community solutions are going to be the same. Which I can think of as families too. Like no family solution is going to be the same. We're all different, and I just think that like it's important. Or a lot of tribes talk about like tribes want to be their own leaders. Like necessarily, we don't want somebody coming in like telling them what to do, which just kind of is like historical because of these boarding schools. There's like a lack of trust. But just in other things, reducing stigma and our words matter. It's just kind of general, but then when I decided the Head Start connection, I thought providing mental health care to parents and or caregivers, which I think like some of the family advocates do already, but then just have a system in place for children and parents in crisis. Um, we had a little one who was like, even we have a lot of kids right now that are screamers, like they'll scream at the top of their lungs, and it's like sometimes I don't really know what to do, and it like hurts your ears, and you can't imagine like how it hurts them, like what they're feeling. So it's like I don't really know sometimes how to handle that. I feel like that's like a crisis when they're screaming like that, especially one that we had would scream for like 10 minutes straight, and I just feel like we didn't really know what to do. Um, or I didn't know what to do. Um, and then there was a couple like outbreak sessions, which I didn't include them all. But there was like leadership in sports, which I liked a lot. So I thought I would touch on just like movement is medicine. And this is oh my gosh, why am I blanking? A medicine wheel. I'm probably getting that wrong, but there's 4 is a sacred number in Native American communities. So just that it encompasses like a holistic version of health. So we have emotional, mental, spiritual, physical, which I just kind of love as like a general concept or teaching. I try to look at my health like that. And then I just wanted to share that all with you. And I wanted to kind of give a shout out to Becky because I like heard her say one time, like, oh, like we need to protect like mental health of the staff, which it's just so like cool when you hear a supervisor saying stuff like that. So I just think, yeah. And for me, it's like, if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of others, which is true. And like, as in a teaching role, like, so there's things like, okay, go to the bathroom, like fill up your water bottle, which sometimes in the craziness of the day, you feel like you don't have time to do. I just kind of want to like touch upon that and give Becky a shout out. Let's see. Okay, so sorry. So I like had some key takeaways that are kind of just like inspirational quotes. I really love inspirational quotes. So when like if it was like the federal government representative, who I don't really know who they are, but they just like said like anything you want to do, you can do. Be proud of who you are and where you come from. Dream big and live optimistically. The future has incredible opportunities for us. Tribes need to have a serious role in policy making, tribal sovereignty, treaty rights, and together we can be resilient. Central to that, create a recognition of indigenous knowledge. And then I've already said this, but tribes need to be able to take the lead with the land. And when you do come to the table, remember the voices of our ancestors and stand on their shoulders. And then healing is how you treat your relatives, which I think Roxy Sproul said that. She also said something like love and anger together can combine healing. I mean, because of the historical kind of trauma, a lot of Native Americans like are holding a lot of tension and anger, but I love like how she just said like love, like we need to have love. You need to approach things with love instead of hate, which I like that teaching. All right, so I'm like coming in towards the end of my presentation. I know I kind of bruised or I talked really fast through things, but I thought I would include a resources slide. So learn whose land you are on. This is kind of like a big land back moment. So we're on the land of like the 3 fires Confederacy, the Anishinaabe, the Odawa, the Potawatomi, and then learn what tribes are in your state area. So the Upper Peninsula has the Sioux tribe, which is the biggest. They have Bay Mills, the KBIC, Hannahville, and then there's some tribes downstate. I think Michigan has 12 federally recognized tribes. So what could you do? You could attend a local nearby powwow. I know there's some hosted by the Sioux tribe and KBIC in the area. Listen to indigenous voices, diverse your social media feeds, and follow some new people. Read native authors. I really like The Science of the Sacred by Nicole Redvers and Brady Sweetgrass. I even bought like a Truth's Giving book around Thanksgiving time. That's just a children's book, but I just was trying to support those native authors. This is a big one. Support Indigenous owned businesses, Native inspired, not inspired Native. I think I got that mixed up. I copied this from a presentation Shayla and I did, and I think I didn't go back and fix that. But support and inspired Native, not Native inspired. So stream Indigenous artists, music or podcasts, donate to Indigenous advocates and groups, and share positive representation. Positive representation, it's like the mascot for the Redmen. Like I know some people are very passionate about keeping that that mascot, and to me it just to me it's like whatever the tribe wants, yeah, but it's also think about like Native youth. Like Native youth have the highest suicide rates, and if that's something that can make them like feel more safe at schools, then it should be a no-brainer. I mean, I was a 3-sport athlete at MSHS. I loved like my coaches, but to me it's not that serious. And it shouldn't be like, oh, I need this mascot. Like let's just support like let's do something once for the Native peoples. Sorry, just a tangent. Okay. So this is so I was invited to go because I was on a fellowship through the Native American Youth Center. It was I won't really talk. I mean, I don't really need to get into it. I was a Brave Heart Fellow, and this was my cohort. So I did that last spring. And yeah, this is a picture of all of us. It was a really cool experience. I'm really happy I was allowed to get time off and like paid to go. So just miigwech, thank you, and then I think that's it. So now is a good time for like questions and discussion.
I just want to say that I really appreciated that presentation. Thank you, Amber. I haven't met you. I'm in Marquette. I'm an advocate at one of the centers here. But I really liked just like how you laid it out with main learning points and then connected it to Head Start. And I think that kind of gave us some takeaways, some things to think about for things we can do like at our Head Start level to maybe be more aware of yeah, the actions that we're taking and the impacts that they might have on current generations and future generations.
Sweet, thank you. Your kind words.
So Amber, I'm not sure if you can see the chat. There's a question. Can you name a few Instagram accounts or Facebook groups we could all follow?
I'm trying to think. I'm not using Instagram this month, but some of I'll look them up and I'll write them in the chat. I really like one on Facebook. It's called the Anishinaabe Nation. I'll write it in the chat though. It's a group.
Either that or, you know, I'm happy to forward it out as an email to people if you don't have time to find them all now.
I really like a group I like is Native Women Running. They just kind of they're on Instagram. They just do a lot with like the running community. I'll write that in the chat.
I follow a couple on Facebook I can share that I enjoy.
That'd be perfect.
I especially enjoy when the little kids are the focus of the whatever video that they're sharing at the time. But and sometimes I'll share those within my page, but I've got two or three of them that I follow. So
one thing, my kids are part of the Sioux tribe, but one thing that I think is really beneficial for all of us is, given that we are on tribal lands, I think that it's super important that every single one of us be like apprised of what's going on within our tribal lands that we're on, you know, so even just following the Sioux Tribe Facebook page, the KBIC Facebook page, the Hannahville Facebook page, Brimley, all of that, so that we are aware of the issues and not just the issues, but the positive things. So we can know when powwows are happening. We can know when there's different things that are occurring. That's a very important thing, especially given that it's a local thing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jenna. And kind of piggybacking on that, I'd go back to Amber. So, we do have, across all of our centers, in some areas, probably have more students who are tribal members than other areas. But, like if a classroom does have some children who are Native American, do you have any suggestions for those staff to support those children and families?
I think like Native American Heritage Day, or like even a small group like talking about the culture. I wore this necklace to school like 2 days ago. And the kids like loved it. They were like, "What is that?" And they were like smelling it, and I was like, "I'm Native American." And like they're like, "No, you're not." Like, but it was kind of funny. Like I think even just like some of the kids, they just like might not know like what is a Native American, what it means to be a Native American. Like I don't know, just like bringing up some discussions, like nothing serious, but even subtle things. Like I told the kid, like, "I'm Native American." He's like, "No, you're not." And he thought it was funny. And I was like, okay. But I don't know. I think that is just like creating a conversation like that. I don't know.
Maybe a follow-up, because I know that you had mentioned that you had found one book, but are there any books that you like, children's books that you know of or that you like?
No, I don't know. I know I bought my sister for her for Christmas like a something like Rough Face. Like there's so many children's books, and even they have some like Anishinaabe in it is kind of cool because the culture or the language is we're trying to preserve. But I think yeah, I really like that Truth's Giving book that I was like thought about bringing to the classroom, but it was kind of wordy and I didn't think it was like kind of it was they were too young for it, I think. But I don't know, even like a conversation about like the meaning behind Thanksgiving, like it should be talked about in public schools. I think, I don't know, but
Amber, can you put the names of those books that you mentioned that you enjoyed in the chat? And I don't know if anybody has read the Angelina Bollet books. Have you read those books? Firekeeper's Daughter. She's a local author from Sault Ste. Marie, and her books are amazing. If you want to borrow them, Amber, I have them.
yeah, I know the Sioux tribe was doing work on like having elders speak Anishinaabe and have recordings of the books. Like for the Sioux tribe schools. I thought that could be kind of cool, even though I don't know. I'm trying to find the names of that book that I really liked about Thanksgiving.
You could send them to Corey as well, and she can send them out. That way you could make a list. I like books I love when books are recommended. So.
And I'll do some research because I think there was somebody from maybe KBIC who wrote a children's book. It was more a UP author. Um, I'll reach out to some of my contacts and see if we can find somebody, because yeah, that might be good to get some copies for our program.
Yeah, that would be great to support like local, I think. So does anyone else have any more questions or discussion? Like even if it's about like the sustainability efforts?
Well, I think it's interesting that at your conference that they talked about getting rid of fossil fuels. I mean, it sounds like totally like no fossil fuels. Is that what they were talking about? Like zero, Zippo, they're gone.
I think like there was discussion about like military bases being like such big polluters and I don't know. I should go grab my notes. I should have had them next to me, but
That's okay.
yeah, it's kind of hard to follow. I felt like what the government was saying.
So, like with sustainability efforts, I think that it would be an amazing thing if we could start like compost piles within our classes, because we do throw away a lot of stuff. We throw away a lot of paper, we throw away a lot of food, we throw away like plastic galore. I mean, every single day and in every single one of our classes. So, I mean, there's one thing, so being on the Ishpeming School Board, also their GSRP classroom has started a compost pile where they throw all of their like fruits and vegetable waste and everything into a bin with worms and they watch it daily, like they pay attention to it to see it go like, disappear. And then they also have part of the Partridge Creek Farm Gardens where they can then put their compost pile or their worm waste. But just being able to do those little things would be an amazing thing. Like in each one of our centers, have a place where we're not just throwing away all this stuff that doesn't have to just be wasted.
I think that's
I
a really
think
good point. Jenna, I always notice the plastics that could be recycled. We had a person here at the office at one point. We had a big bin in the kitchen, and they would take the plastics to the recycle. Somebody would just have to be willing to then remove it and take it somewhere. But I think plastics is something that we certainly do. Composting is a great idea too, because I compost myself, but it might be a little more challenging in the classroom because then you have a bucket of rotting stuff. But it's not impossible, and if a teacher was really inspired to do that, I think that would be awesome. I have issues with the Elder County period with their lack of garbage abilities for their citizens, and have had several conversations with the conservation district about that. So that's a real challenge just in a community, but we certainly could do our part. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, I think that's like a really easy, low-hanging fruit thing that we could do in all of our classrooms is just to get a recycle bin or, container, and then, start talking to the kids about, well, what types of things can go in here, like your papers can go in here, and, what types of plastics can go in here, and that's a really easy thing to do. Yeah, I would love to talk to any teacher who's interested in, maybe going to the next step. And, if they were interested in composting, we can look at, what types of things are available. But yeah, just having simple recycle bins in all the classrooms would be an easy first step.
Yeah, I think not even at the centers, but I was kind of surprised to learn that we don't have like a regular recycling practice even in like at the main office. So I've been told to just throw my papers in the garbage, like in the trash, which is kind of surprising. I feel like that could be a really simple, like, I guess I could bring them down to the shredder. I don't know where that is. But yeah, to just do something at the main office too, and just kind of maybe incorporate those practices all over. Like, yeah, like Corey said, it's kind of a low hanging fruit. That was kind of the first thing that I thought of too, of simple changes that we could make.
I think another thing we could do, I'm gonna wait.
Okay, go ahead.
Jenna's volume was on, so I could hear myself. It was terrible. Anyways, we could, I don't know, any of you have that have received an email from Amber. She gives honor to the land that we are on, and I think we could add that to our signature line. And Amber had that website on her presentation, and she sent it to me. I need to put it on mine, but I think that would be another way of honoring that we recognize that we are on land that truly isn't ours. And then the other thing is I thought of, and I know it was about the mental health. We do have a mental health process in place. And so I just want to make sure that anyone on here that didn't understand that we definitely do have good mental health practices in place for our children and our families. And sometimes there are delays in getting the services, especially out to Elder County. So that is something in my role that I am always looking at, is how to get that more streamlined. But we do absolutely have things in place.
Yeah, thanks. I kind of figured that, but I just thought I'd include that in the presentation.
Amber, would you mind putting your email in the chat in case anybody has any follow-up questions, they might want to send you? Would that be okay?
So Amber, I just wanted to say miigwech for going and representing our area in Washington, because that's a huge feat just in itself. And so also congratulations on being chosen for that, because that's a big deal.
Thank you. It was really cool. I'm really happy that I was able to go. I'm trying to copy and paste my work email because it's so long. But it'll just take me a second. I just included my personal email. Okay.
Thank you for bringing up like the boarding schools. Because for me, I've heard of them and I knew they existed, but I don't know too much about them. But as you were talking, it made me realize that we need to think about the families that we have and that it could still be affecting them. Like you said, your grandfather was a survivor. Well, we could have families that are also have those kind of the people, and just remembering that when we are having conversations or trying, you know, when we are interacting with families.
Yeah, one of my biggest takeaways when learning about these schools were just like that these children didn't see, like they didn't feel love, like they weren't loved at a young age, so that like carried over to their parenting techniques, like which may be why like you see like abuse in Native American homes, or drug abuse, substance issues, like, but it all comes down to just like no love as children. I feel it like it's being studied right now, but it's like I don't know, and it's just like so sad that that had to happen. But
I think that is very important too, just as us as people who provide services to our community, especially the vulnerable, that we do understand that our area was very much part of having boarding schools. Like the Grandview in Marquette, the old orphanage was a boarding school. So that's something that I feel like it becomes a responsibility for us to learn about and be able to understand, because yes, it definitely does affect the families and children that we serve, and especially given the fact that it was not that long ago. The last boarding school actually closed in in Canada in 1996. And in the US, the last boarding school closed in 1986. So that's within my lifetime and the lifetime of most of the people who are on here. So I feel like that's something that we really need to be aware of, and then keep ourselves and have that in the back of our mind, that we also don't always know who is actually Native American and who it may have touched. And so, like my kids, everyone assumes that they're actually just white children, when in all reality, they're a quarter Black and half Native. So that's something that I actually had an issue with my son in school a couple of weeks ago, where a teacher assumed his race, and did not end very well. But but that's something that we all need to be very aware of, is we can't just assume that we know everybody's race, background, history, whatever that may be. And we also have to be make it an actual choice to search for this knowledge and be aware of this knowledge.
So I would put it out to, this group, but of course open to, feedback from all staff. Um, what would you like to learn more about our Native, American community, working with the Native American culture, obviously this isn't, a one and done conversation. So, what other things, would help us grow as a Head Start community in our work with families, and particularly those that do have a Native American background. So, what additional resources would you be looking for?
Personally, I don't know much about the background of tribes in this area and kind of where they're at now and what they're doing and the locations. So I feel like I could use just like a whole debrief on like I know there's a lot of awareness that this is like Anishinaabe land. There's been more kind of talk about that, but that's kind of the extent of what I know. Like I know kind of the different tribes and kind of where they're located, but there's a lot I don't know. Like Jenna just said, Grandview was a boarding school. I had no idea. So I feel like a lot of people maybe are like me, like we have no idea the history of this area and kind of where the descendants of the tribes are at now and kind of what's happening today. And yeah, like just a background would be helpful for me.
Thanks for sharing that. That's good feedback. Anyone else have any things that they might want to learn more about as we go forward?
Yeah, I really agree. I agree with what was just said. Like, even I don't really, the history can be so confusing, and I didn't take as much classes at Northern as I should have. A friend just gifted me a book on like the origin story of the Three Fires Confederacy, which I plan to read. Um, but yeah, it's just like there's so much to learn, and there's you could spend a lifetime learning it. But I think I know that it was said in the Munising location, like something about making fry bread. Um, my big thing with that is like that's not traditional. Like that's not a traditional Native American food, fry bread. Like that's like a colonized food that that indigenous communities had to turn to in order to survive. So just like a disclaimer, like foods, like that could be interesting, like teachings, like the seventh generation or the seven grandfather teachings, to hang those up on the wall, like, oh, love, respect, I don't even remember what they are, wisdom, humility, like bravery, um, just like starting some conversations, like nothing super intense because they're so young, but oh, like there's Native Americans and like you're a Native American, because I'm sure some of the kids like might not understand or know that they're tribal. Um, so I don't know.
Like, I know most of you know this story, but for those of you that don't know this story, so my kids being tribal, when my son was in kindergarten and they learned about Thanksgiving, he knew he was tribal, but he came home and was super concerned because in the story of Thanksgiving, which is the normal, not the truth story of Thanksgiving, Native Americans gave people corn, and he's never given anyone corn. And so that's a problem. And he needed to go out and give people cans of corn. And I was like, that's not right. But it's really interesting that that's how you interpreted that. So again, like you're saying, Amber, being able to share the actual those types of things, like the seven the seven generation teachings and all of that, that's really important to be able to, for young children to be able to learn those things, right? So that they don't end up having like a distorted view of, oh, I was supposed to give everyone corn, I didn't do anything right. Like
It's even like Christopher Columbus, like he didn't discover America, like there was already people here living for like thousands of years, but I don't know. It's so like that's like another issue. It's just like history and elementary, but
I think one thing to talk about with young children, Amber, for you in particular, when children don't identify themselves in a culture, they only identify themselves in their family. Um, that you might say you're an American and I'm a Native American. To just kind of open that dialogue up a little bit so that children understand that we're all Americans. However, you're a Native American, and that has another meaning. It means something else. And you might not get into that, but it might help that child understand when you say I'm a Native American, he's only hearing you say I'm something, and he doesn't know how to put it in context. So I remember having a conversation with a child because her mother moved away to England. She was very sad. She missed her mom. And I went and I got a globe and I showed her where she lived on the globe and where her mother was and how it was very far away. Well, she can't understand the world is a place and space. But I talked about Santa, that Santa had to go all the way around the world, and that for Santa to get to her mom, it was a long way. So she wasn't, the point was for her to understand her mom wasn't just going to show up at dinner time tonight. Her mom was so far away that she just, no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't get there. And so, trying to put it in context for this little kid, might just be saying, and that might be something that you talk about a lot in your classroom, that we're Americans. Do we have American flags in our classroom? We're a federal program. We should have American flags. Kids should know where they're from. So do they know they live in Michigan? Do they know they live in Marquette or Munising or Ishpeming? Do they know where they live? Usually that's where you start. That's where, but that could be.
That brings flashbacks, Barbie, to when I was in the classroom many, many years ago, and there was a test we had to give the children. This was back when we still tested our kids, and one of the questions was, "Who is your neighbor to the north?" I will never forget that. Right. All right. Any last thoughts or questions?